influenced by Lyndon LaRouche, that his investigation was being fed information by Lyndon LaRouche. What do you know about that?
Not too much. I got information from LaRouche. LaRouche had, not LaRouche himself, but somebody working for him,
right,
who had good contacts with federal law enforcement people, and that's how they got a lot of their information, and they would pass some of that on to people like me, which I found helpful, and they were not indispensable or anything, but they were useful.
And you found that information to be credible?
Yes.
Verifiable?
Oh, yeah. No, they were dealing with federal law enforcement people,
gotcha,
the Justice Department, and they would get information from them, and a lot of it was valid, I think,
And Danny Castellaro was also in touch with Danny Sheehan over at the Christic Institute?
If he was, I may have known that, but I can't confirm or deny that. I just don't remember.
Gotcha. How about
it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me if that's true. I just don't have any recollection anymore.
Yeah, again, I found that in Wikipedia, just perusing around different things. You sent me a document today about, I forget one of the big, let me find it, Lockheed Martin. What's that? What was that whole story about?
Well, I may have mentioned this to you, Ed. Exactly 12 months before the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Air Force, I got an email and then a follow-up telephone call from the publisher of the planned official commemorative book for the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Air Force, inviting Inslaw to take out a full-page ad in the book. And placing any ad in it was by invitation only from the publisher. And in the course of his follow-up telephone call, he said Microsoft, Oracle, and Inslaw are the three U.S. software vendors with the largest installed bases of their products in the U.S. Air Force.
Right.
And Inslaw had never even marketed to the Air Force. And the guy who was vice president of Lockheed Aircraft when they developed the F-117 stealth fighter, his name was Ben R. Rich, and somebody else co-authored a book called Skunk Works about the development of the F-117 at Lockheed Aircraft Skunk Works in Burbank, California. And in the book, he boasts how several of his engineers came to him one day with a spontaneous idea. Why don't we develop a sophisticated database software for the cockpit that'll do all kinds of intelligence-related things, which they enumerate in the book. The author enumerates them. Ben Rich enumerates them.
Sure.
And he said, in a record amount of time and not too much money, we succeeded in doing that. And, of course, this is not plausible. To develop that kind of software takes years and not months, And so they're claiming that they developed it from scratch, which is not plausible, I can tell you that. And he said the Air Force Systems Command in Dayton, Ohio was so impressed by that cockpit database software we developed for the F-117 stealth fighter that they bought a global license to install it in the cockpit of every U.S. attack aircraft. And I did a Freedom of Information inquiry to the Air Force Systems Command in Dayton, and they said, we don't have those documents, but we think they may be at Lockheed Aircraft's Palmdale, California facility. But, of course, Lockheed Aircraft, as far as I can tell, is not subject to FOIA. They're not part of the federal government, And so the Air Force Systems Command escapes having to produce this stuff by saying it's over at Lockheed Aircraft's Palmdale facility. But I can't get it. I can't get at it because I can't use FOIA against Lockheed,
Yeah, it's a public company. I think you could buy some stock and then request it as a stockholder,
Right.
possibly. We'd have to take a look into that. But are you still actively looking into all this?
Well, not that much.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not very active about that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this then. Like, after living through this, what is your day-to-day life like right now? Do you think about this every day?
Well, not every day, but frequently. Particularly if something comes up that I happen to know something about.
Yeah.
And that happens from time to time. And
in one of the documents you sent me, there was even speculation that Osama bin Laden might have had access to the back door and had information about the investigation into his activities.
Yes, I remember being aware of those allegations, which I think could easily be plausible, but I don't remember any details about them.
Right, and you don't remember?
It would not shock me at all.
It wouldn't me either, because when there's all kinds of information that's for sale out there if you have the money. And people don't realize it. Like even those anonymous registrations for website privacy registrations, those guys sell that. They sell that information. It's like $10,000. It's not cheap, but all that stuff's for sale, man. It's all out there. What about? Can you tell us about the affidavit of William Turner?
Well, as I think I mentioned to you, he was keeping sensitive documents Kessler was getting from some of his cooperating witnesses. He was keeping them in a safe in his home in Winchester, Virginia. And Danny called him and asked him to bring that file of documents to the parking lot of the Sheraton Hotel in Martinsburg on let's say a Friday afternoon, and give them to Danny because he needed him to trade with some of the people he was meeting with on Inslaw that evening. And the documents included documents Danny got from that Alan Standorf, who was an NSA civilian employee at the Vint Hill, Virginia NSA facility. And that was the guy, I think you and I talked about this, who was in January of 91, just a few months before Casolaro was found dead. This man, Alan Standorf, was found beaten to death in the back seat floor of his own car in a parking lot at Nashville Airport. And the government maintains it was never able to solve the murder. There's no question he was murdered. And having worked at NSA for 7 years, I told you all this, that I do not find it very believable that NSA would shrug their shoulders when one of their employees was found beaten to death. It can't take a chance like that he could have been subject to blackmail. Who knows what the hell is going on, Right,
because you said before that he had access to that main core, which was highly secretive.
Well, that stuff that Turner talks about, he doesn't use the term main core,
right?
But it's blackmail stuff, and so I think it is main core. And what I was told, I may have mentioned this to you, that I was approached by a retired Army Criminal Investigation Division guy on the Hill one day when Nancy and I were about to testify on some aspect of the Inslaw case. And he offered his help to me. And he turned out to be a gutsy character. And he introduced me to some of his sources in U.S. Army Special Forces intelligence. And they did a lot of the surveillance work when supplementary surveillance, physical surveillance was needed. Evidently, the government would use U.S. Army Special Forces intelligence people to do it. And so they knew a hell of a lot about the political blackmail operation. And Well, I forgot what I was about to tell you about that, but at any rate.
Yeah, I forgot too. Well, you told me this off the air too.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting too now. My goodness. Okay. I think it involved the stuff about the Division D, perhaps. No.
Hello.
Yeah, I believe it involved a Division D. Was that where you were getting at? No.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's it. Let's put it aside for a minute. Now, what about the information you gave me about Gordon Thomas interviewing that Mossad agent? Why don't you go over that with us?
Well, you mean Rafi Eitan?
Yes.
Well, that all fit in with everything I believed about what was going on. And Gordon Thomas was doing an authorized history of the Mossad, authorized by the Israeli government. And Rafi Eitan had been the Mossad's deputy director for, I think, 2 decades, deputy director for covert operations. So he, unsurprisingly, would be in the middle of this stuff, you know. He was a legendary spy chief in Israel, in the Mossad. And so those two sworn statements from Rafi Eitan were extremely important.
Yeah, and Rafi Eitan actually says, he says in that he wouldn't repeat it on the record, on TV, on video, or on recording because he wanted to deny it later.
Oh. Yeah, yeah, I don't remember that, but it doesn't surprise me.
Oh no, yeah, that's in there. It's in the papers you sent me. Now, I want a real quick question too. Now, I met you through Martin Dillon, who wrote the book about Robert Maxwell. How did you come in contact with Martin Dillon? Was he asking you about information you had about Maxwell?
No, I think I mentioned this to you. I never had much contact with him directly. I had a lot of contact with Gordon Thomas.
Okay.
And Thomas furnished his 2 affidavits to Inslaw, which were extremely helpful to Inslaw. And I was aware of Dillon, and I may have talked to him from once or twice, but I don't even remember doing that. But it would have been superfluous because Gordon Thomas was the main guy on this stuff, and I was dealing directly with him anyway, you know.
Gotcha.
With Gordon Thomas, I mean.
How does Adnan Khashoggi fit into all this?
I don't remember anymore. Okay.
Do you remember who Khashoggi is, though?
Yeah, just vaguely.
A billionaire arms dealer, some say human trafficker, sex trafficker, drug dealer, smuggler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to know more about that kind of stuff than I remember today.
I hear you. Well, you've forgotten more than most people know. So we're still ahead of the game here. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Kazaban murders that were connected to Michael Riconoscito. Do you remember that? What was going on with that?
What did you call them? Like what?
Kazaban, which I think is a city in California.
Oh, you mean where that? There's something wrong with that name, I think.
I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. It was those 2 murders that were connected to Michael Riconoscito that were supposedly witnesses and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember. One thing I meant to tell you the other day when we talked about Riconoscito is that he eventually went to prison, as you know, he was 1 week after he gave his affidavit to Inslaw, he was arrested by the Drug Enforcement Administration at his home in Washington State, and accused, based on circumstantial evidence, of using precursor chemicals that are used to make methamphetamine, is using them for making methamphetamine. And he explained at trial that the same chemicals that are used to make methamphetamine are also used for recovering precious metals